So before I was diagnosed, I knew I had a cyst. So a year before, I had a scan which identified a dermoid cyst on my left ovary. I was then sat on a waiting list for gynecology at a local hospital. And about 2 months before, I started getting quite a lot of pain, so a real stabbing pain in my lady parts, is the way I could describe it. And that was increasing, it was becoming more regular, and I went back to my GP and just said, there's something not right, I'm in pain a lot. So they referred me for a scan. I was waiting for the scan. I was on a 4-week wait and I had bloods done. And then about a week before I was admitted to hospital, I was laid on a beach with my best friend and my tummy was really hard. And I was like, oh, this feels weird. I thought almost like it was like I was pregnant. So like when you're, as a woman, where your bikini line, it's really, really hard. That carried on and my stomach continued to get more bloated. That was on the Saturday, by like the Tuesday, I couldn't do my trousers up. Convinced I was pregnant. Thankfully I wasn't. And I then just began feeling nauseous, couldn't really eat a lot. If I did eat a lot, I felt sick. And on the Thursday, managed to get a scan at my local hospital, and they found a mass. They couldn't tell whether it was attached to my ovary or not at this scan, and referred me for an emergency MRI, which was still a week to wait. Anyway, by the Friday, I felt really unwell, and on the Saturday morning, I was admitted to hospital. So I presented at my local emergency department. I couldn't stand up from the pain, it was excruciating. My stomach obviously remained bloated, I felt sick, and I was admitted onto the ward, onto the gynecology ward. I didn't really know what was going on. I was given some really strong pain relief at this time. I knew that I had this mass, so I made them aware of that. When they looked at the mass, they said that it was 15 centimetres and that it was attached to my ovary, and they believed that it was from the cyst that I'd had before. So they pulled me into a side room. It was about 10 o'clock at night. I was, off my face on morphine. And they kind of sat me down and prepared me, and they said, oh, the only thing that ever grows this quickly is usually cancer. We need to prepare you for that. I was like, no, it's not, it's a cyst. I've had dermoid cysts before, so I had one when I was 15 and I had another one when I was 26. They'd always just needed to be surgically removed. So I was just like, oh, you just need to do keyhole surgery on me and I can be on my way. Obviously, I spent all day in the emergency department. I felt I was really obviously unwell. I'd been on morphine all day. I was on my own. So I didn't have anyone with me. They took me into the side room. It was just one doctor who was an on-call gynae, I'm presuming, for the weekend. They laid me on the bed and she felt my tummy again, and then that's when she said, look, this town, I need to tell you that the only thing that grows this quickly is cancer. And immediately I didn't believe it. I just was like, no, it's not. It's a cyst. You need to remove it. And I remember leaving the room and she was like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, fine. I was like, it's all right, no problem. It's not cancer. Totally didn't believe that. I was too young to get cancer, only 33. And I went back to the ward and sat down in my bed, and I was like, right, I'm not going to tell anyone about this. I'm not going to tell my mum. I'm not going to tell my best friend because they'll worry. Let's not make anyone worry. And it was about 10 o'clock at night. And then I sat there and I was like, what if it is? What if this is cancer? And I just remember feeling really poorly and knowing that there was something wrong with me. And so I made the phone call. And then when I made the phone call and I uttered the word and said they think it's cancerous, that's when I bawled my eyes out. And I think my first thought was, it's cancer, I'm going to die. And what am I going to do about my children and in my life and everything? And my whole world turned upside down in a moment, but I was also poorly. And because I was so poorly, I just wanted to feel better. And I remember being really emotional. I was then catheterised. And I was just ill. I was really, really poorly. My friend thought I was going to die. She'd come and took one look at me and she's like, you are so unwell. I had a CT scan on the Monday whilst I was admitted to hospital. And at my CT scan, they found that it was now 19 centimetres, so it grew 4 centimetres in 5 days. And so they knew that there was a mass. They then obviously also did my bloods. My bloods came back with cancer markers, so my CA125 was increased, so was my AFP. But they were baffled as it wasn't as increased as what it should be for the size of the mass. Fast forward a couple more days of being an inpatient and being treated with pain relief, I was then presented with the option of what to do with my ovary, and they were going to remove my left ovary, put me on HRT because I was only 33 at the time, and I'd be on my merry way. And then thankfully the surgery that was due to happen on the Wednesday was cancelled, and on the Thursday the consultant came up to me again and she said, we've had another little look at it and we think that you've got germ cell cancer, and if you have germ cell cancer you cannot have any HRT. She was like, we can leave an ovary potentially, and I was like, no, just take them both away. I'll do it cold turkey. And sorry, the original plan was to take both ovaries and put me on HRT, and then the second plan was to leave me with one. Anyway, decided to have both taken out. So on the 1st of June 2023, had both ovaries, both tubes removed, and the tumour was that big by this time that it had twisted my left ovary and my tumour was dying off inside. So I was probably hours, days away from being sepsis. And yeah, they found, they said it was the size of a melon by the time they took it out, and the reason it was so big was because it bled internally. So if it hadn't have bled, I wouldn't have known that they wouldn't have caught it, they wouldn't have taken it out as quick as they did. So I was really, really, really lucky. And it was after this that there was obviously a biopsy done, and then I was informed about 2 weeks later that I had a grade 1A immature teratoma germ cell cancer. So yeah. The first person I told was my best friend. We've been best friends for 25 years. And as much as I didn't want to tell her because I knew she'd worry, I needed her at that moment. And I told her, and I think none of us really processed it. I told her, I rang my best friend and I rang my mum, and none of us could overly process it because what was going on for me was where I was just generally unwell. I suppose the time when I got told that what type of cancer it was further on. It was after my initial surgery. I'd recovered from that, and that was in the July of last year. And again, weird. I was viewing my friend's house with her that she was buying, and I had a phone call, and I'd said to the consultant already, I was like, whenever you get my results in, please just ring me. I'm not daft. I don't want to come all the way up to the hospital. Just give me a call so I know. And that was when I took the call, and I again didn't tell anyone for a minute, and we were finished viewing the house, walking around with the estate agent, and then we got in her car again with my best friend, and got in her car, and I went, who was that phone call from? And I said, oh, it was the hospital. She's like, what was it? I was like, yeah, I had grade 1A immature teratoma. It was cancer. and they now need to go and review me at the germ cell MDT meeting as to whether I'll have chemo. And she was like, okay. And she went, Sadie, that's pretty big. And I was like, no, I was like, I won't need to have chemo. And I think I'd already been told by my gynae that I wouldn't need to have chemo. And so I was like, it's fine, it's gone, it's removed. So yeah. And then I kind of told everyone, and I suppose we already knew it was cancerous, and then that was just a confirmation of what it was. And then I just nosedived into Google and tried to find people with the same cancer, and tried to find people with what were my chances of needing chemo, what were my survival rate, where will it come back, and Google is never the best place to look for that information. And I found very little information, if I'm honest, about my type of cancer and ovarian cancer especially. There's so much about breast cancer, there's so much about cervical cancer, but ovarian, yeah, really hard to find that information. I was obviously admitted into hospital with acute pain, and I was told I would need a midline laparotomy. So I had a surgical procedure where I was cut from my belly button down to my bikini line, so open tummy surgery, and that's when they removed the tumour, the tubes and both ovaries. Took me a little while to recover from that. I had about 6-7 weeks off work. And then at the end of July, after my case had been taken to the germ cell MDT, my oncologist called and told me I would need to have BEP chemo. BEP chemo, I've never heard of it before. I presumed it would be like other people I know have had chemo and they go in every week or every fortnight. And it wasn't until a couple of days after I had a Macmillan nurse ring me, and she was like, your regime is quite significant on BEP, and you need to be in, you're going to have it 5 days straight for 6 hours a day. And again, I was just like, oh, it'd be fine, it'd be okay. And I spoke to friends that had breast cancer, or and kind of found out information from them, and and I always remember sitting in we've got a mustard centre in our hospital, and the Macmillan nurse came to do the kind of pre-consultation before you start your chemo, and I said, oh yeah, I'm going to drive myself up every day, I'm still going to work. I was a project manager at the time, so I said I could take my laptop up to the chemo ward and work all day. And she went, oh my darling, you're not going to be well enough. And it was at that point I thought, whoa, okay. My first thought obviously was my children. Thankfully, when I started BEP chemo, they were with their dad on holiday. And I just don't think I planned for how poorly I would be. And I've got a very positive mindset, and I'm very independent, and I was poorly, and not even just the chemotherapy itself, the steroids that they give you, the extra anti-sickness meds they give you, and by the end of the 5 days, the first cycle, I've snottily cried into so many chemo nurses tunics. It's been unreal, and then I was finding out it was cumulative, so on each cycle it's going to get worse. I gained loads of weight, I lost all my hair was gone by the second cycle. I chose not to cold cap. And so yeah, did 3 cycles of BEP, and then that ended in October. And I was then told I would also need to have further hysterectomy. So I had full hysterectomy in January 2024, where they removed my uterus and my cervix. And obviously now dealing with menopause, completely no HRT, nothing. So yeah, that's been like the medical treatment for it. And now I have 3 monthly bloods and 6 monthly CT scans. There's no clear remission pathway with my cancer, so I'll be under oncology now until I'm about 45, so for the next 10 years. Chemo was, being told I needed to have chemo was really hard and gives me goosebumps now. I was told 2 days before I was flying to Cyprus for one of my best friend's wedding. My best friend was already out there. And I was sat having my nails done. I'm ready for my holiday. And I get a call from the medical secretary. And she said, oh, we've had the outcome from the NDT. And I said, what is it? And she said, I need to make an appointment. And I said, no, don't mess me around. Please tell me what it is. I said, you can call them at Macmillan Nurse, whatever you need to do. Like, I've spoken to them, I want to know. And so bless her, she rang me back. Rang me back whilst I was having my nails done. And I just said, okay. She said, they've confirmed that you do need to have chemotherapy and we need to get you in as soon as possible. Can you come in next week? I said, no, I'm in Cyprus, I'm going away. And so we made a date for, I think like 2.5 weeks after. So I started chemo on the 21st of August. And she said, but the week before you need to have these bloods. And I didn't listen. It was totally over my head at that point. And I put the phone down. And I remember saying to the nail, I was like, oh, that's a nice colour. She went, Sadie, what was the phone call? And I said, I've got to have chemo. And she just looked up at me, and that was it. We both burst out into tears. And I just cried. And I know what chemo means. I know chemo means I'm going to lose my hair. And that was the biggest thing for me at that time, is that I'm going to lose my hair and I'm going to be poorly again. And I've just been poorly for what felt like forever. And I really felt that after my operation that my life was back in, I was back to Sadie again. And now this was all, I was well, I felt fine. I was back at work, and now this was going to change all of that again. Kept the secret for a couple of days. I didn't want to tell my best friend while she was in Cyprus, and whilst I wasn't there. I flew out, and the next day after I got there, we sat on the sun lounger and we went and got coffee. I went and bought coffee over to us, and we were just chatting. The kids were in the pool, and I just held her hand and I said, Rob, I've got to have chemo. And you could just see the tear just fall from her face underneath her sunglasses, and we just both laid on the sun lounger just crying. And I was like, it's all right, it's okay, it's fine. I just had a bloody good holiday. I had a really good holiday with my children and my friends, and it was beautiful. And my friends struggled with it. They all then knew, and I got up on stage at one night, and then they come back down, and all my friends were crying. And I'm like, what are you crying for? And I'm like, it's not like I'm never going to do that again. I was like, and I think because I'd only been poorly for a small amount of time, they knew I was now going to go into being poorly for longer. And I think my friends and my family probably took this news a lot worse than I did initially. I was just like, let's get it done. Give me whatever you need to give me so this doesn't come back. And then that's when it started. And it was a lot. And I think the biggest thing for me, as I said, I was 33, female, want to know when my hair's going to fall out. Is my hair going to fall out? How long does it take to fall out? Will it come out in clumps? How does it grow back? How long does it take to grow back? And I couldn't tell you what my Google search history looked like, because it would have been, if anybody was watching me, I would be like, oh my God. And what are the chances of cancer returning after chemo? all of that's where that, even knowing that the chemotherapy I had affected my lung function, it affected my hearing. I had to have hearing tests done before, lung function tests before. I didn't realise that. I didn't realise that I had to have a blood test before every chemo. I didn't realise that bleomycin can make you react to it, and that I was then at risk of having being I can't remember what the word is, potentially having sepsis, or it's neutropenic sepsis. Didn't know I would be at risk of that, and that I'd have to carry a little card around with me. And the Macmillan nurses were great, and they explained everything, and they were wonderful, but I didn't really take a lot of it in. They gave me leaflets and things. I don't read them. I think I read it maybe in the car on the way up to my first chemo just to find out where it was. I'm not a fan of reading it. I like I found loads of my information out from TikTok and from Instagram and things like that, and tried to find people that had been through it themselves, and at the time couldn't find anyone not a girl that had that chemo. My children came up to see me and they saw me poorly, and they were worried, and I think that's what made me go, Mummy's all right, it's absolutely fine. And they didn't know that it was cancer. I didn't say that word out loud to them. My children are 12 and 7. My 7-year-old doesn't understand the concept anyway, but my 12-year-old definitely does. So they knew I was poorly, but brave-faced mum put that on. And it wasn't until I found out for certain that it was cancerous that I sat my daughter down and I said, look, Mummy's had this. And she was okay, and she just wanted me to know, are you going to be all right though? I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm going to be absolutely fine. I was internally petrified, absolutely, utterly petrified. You never ever think that it's going to happen to you. I didn't have life insurance. No way am I getting life insurance in my 30s. I'm too young for that. And my prognosis was amazing. It was really good, and I was never told that it was a chance that I wouldn't be here. But actually, the minute that the C word is mentioned, you automatically think that. And so I quickly was like, I had to be pragmatic about everything. So I was like, right, I don't have a will. I don't have, what am I going to leave? If so, yeah. And I know that it was more like catastrophic thinking, more so. And then I was like, right, just stop being weird and just, let's go with what's going on with you, let's get better. And I think the biggest thing for me was probably telling the kids about chemo and that Mummy was gonna lose hair. My daughter's 12, she's at secondary school. And even now, for a moment, my daughter was ashamed of me in a way, not ashamed, it's hard to say that, but she was embarrassed that I looked that way. And I know that she felt like that. She never said that, but I know that. So if she had football matches, I had a wig, so I wore my wig. If there were events, she maybe wouldn't want me dropping her there. If I was dropping her to school, I'd always have to wear a head wrap. She was petrified of people finding my TikTok page and not so much that she was embarrassed about me necessarily, but what her friends might say about me. My son just wanted to stick things to my head, and we played Bold Out Wars, and we made a joke of it, and so I bought these sticky suction things and we stuck them to my head, and then we made a joke, and I bought some funny wigs, and I kind of just embraced it and put on that brave face. The children spent an awful lot of time with their dad. I wasn't well enough to look after them, especially when I was having the treatment. And I missed them so much, but I couldn't be the mum that I wanted to be, and I couldn't do the school run. I couldn't walk my dog. And it was all those things that I felt, and I felt like a huge failure as a mum. And I know I'm not. but I felt like that for a while. So yeah, and even now, chemo was 7 months ago nearly now, and obviously I still have short hair. And we're due to go to a football match in a couple of weeks' time. My daughter is worried about what people might say about her mum. And I'm like, well, I've got hair now. And she's like, yeah, but mum, it's still short. And it's that. My 12-year-old shouldn't have to worry about what her mum looks like. She shouldn't have to worry about what children might say about her mum. So sometimes I feel bad that they've had to go through it. I know that's crazy, there's nothing I could have done to stop it, but I've tried to just continue to be resilient and be strong for them and not let them see when I've been really poorly. I shielded them from that, and I'm very fortunate that I separated from my ex-husband and we have separate houses, so we're able to do that. I can't imagine what it's like for a mum who's got their children around her 24/7 and can't shield them from that. Yeah, my body changed a lot. I used to have injections and I had bruises all over my body. I'm scarred. I've got scars all over my tummy. My son pretended that he had the same scar as Mummy for a while when his trousers would make a mark in his belly, and it's just, and being asked by your children, Mum, are you going to die, when you look poorly and you're bald and you've got a PICC line in your arm, and that's horrible. That is horrible. And reassuring them, saying no, of course not, but actually that could happen. And yeah, you don't think about it. So yeah, it's been hard, but I've got through it, and now I'm much stronger for that. And really, my children have seen their mum deal with that and go through that, and be as resilient and as strong as I could. As a daughter, with my mum still around, I became the little girl again, and I needed my mum more than anything. I ugly cried into my mum's arms. Physically, she held me like a baby. I am 5'7". I'm a big girl. And she cradled me like she did when I was a child, and stroked my head like she did when I was a child. I absolutely just broke down in her arms because I felt so rubbish. I felt so poorly, and I needed her. But equally, I think that was probably that happened maybe about 3 or 4 times during chemo, and probably the only time I let my guard down. And allowed her to do that for me. And I had to let people cook me meals, and I had to let people take care of me, and then I had to let people drive me. So it's a huge learning curve for me, who's really normally fiercely independent and wants to do everything myself, that I couldn't actually do that. So yeah, it's been hard being the mum and being the only adult in the house and things like that, but out the other side, which is good. I think the way I am, and how resilient I am, and how I'm constantly like, oh, I'm just going to do it, and I will prove to everyone that I can do it, because that's who I am as a person. I've battled with it, and so for work, I actually work for a local community healthcare trust, and I was a project manager, and my job was quite busy. I loved my job. I hated being off sick, so I went back to work about 2 weeks after chemo, probably way too early, but was determined to come back. My boss was like, "You shouldn't be coming back," and I was like, I need normal. I needed normal again in my life. I have been a single female for like 2 years, so I wasn't involved with anyone kind of romantically, and got to that point where I'm like, well, no one is going to be interested in me now. I'm bald, this is it, and that's okay. But like dealing with that at 30, I was 34 at the time. Like 34, I should be dating and having a lovely time, but actually I'm not. I'm poorly. So parked all of that. And I ended up, back to work. And I was okay for a minute. I think it was nearly Christmas, so I just poured myself into that. I was already having therapy before I even got diagnosed with cancer. So I continued with my therapy sessions, which were really, really helpful. And I also journaled anyway, and I journaled mainly either videos on TikTok, or I'd write. I used to write things down. And yeah, I think I physically, by the end of chemo, I was 2 stone heavier, I was bald, and I was so unfit. Obviously it impacted my lung functions. I was out of breath just walking up the stairs or doing the dishes. My knees hurt, my joints hurt, everything was painful. I felt terrible. And everyone around me was like, oh yeah, but you've been through a real big thing, and be kind to yourself. And it's all advice I would give it to anyone else, but for myself, never took it. And I remember looking in the mirror and taking a picture of my stomach that is completely scarred, my head that had no hair on it. I was round, I had big round chemo cheeks, and I just was like, and I laughed. I was like, I literally look like Uncle Fester. And then I think a week or so after, I ended up at an awards ceremony for my work, and I wore my wig and I put my makeup on, and for a minute I was back to me again, and that was lush. That was really, really lush. And I then just went on to embrace it. I think I embraced what I looked like and dealt with that, and then things like joint pain and aching and tiredness just took part and parcel of it. And I used to call it the chemo card, and I say I'm pulling the chemo card in work. So I was like, sorry, I've had chemo. I found myself outwardly telling everyone about it. So I would overshare. I was in a meeting, a strategy group meeting, and the people I don't know, and I had a head wrap on, and I went, oh, just so you know, I've got a head wrap on because I've had cancer and I've just had chemo, I've got no hair. And they're like, that isn't relating to anything we're talking about in this meeting. But I felt like I needed to tell everyone so that then no one would talk behind my back. Everyone knew, and it was all out in the open, and I could then felt like I needed to gain their permission to then be myself. So it was weird. And I'm still probably a little bit like that now. And then my hair started growing back. Menopause-wise, the brain fog is still there. I even managed over Christmas to be involved with someone romantically, which is totally unexpected. But at the same time, kind of said to them, like, this isn't who I am. I haven't felt like me for a long time. I was like, when I lose weight, when I get back into the gym, when I get back to work properly, when I get like that, I'm then different. And it turns out that as I've progressed, that didn't work out, and that's been fine. It is what it is. I'm kind of used to doing life on my own, so it doesn't really make much difference. Obviously, I had chemo, then I had Christmas, and then I had hysterectomy on the 5th of January. And the thing about me was I was adamant that I was going into 2024 with not needing any treatment, and I just missed it, which is fine. So I had my hysterectomy on the January, but even with that, I felt well. So it was keyhole surgery, and it just felt like a walk in the park compared to the others. And again, positive mindset. It's really easy to get when you have a cancer diagnosis and when you're looking at things online and things in social media, it's really easy to get sucked into other people and overanalyze yourself, overanalyze just what you're going through, and then liken it to who you're looking at. So I made sure I only looked at positive people. I made sure I sought out the good success stories. And I think that made my journey much easier and better. I blocked out like negative stuff or things sad stories, mainly. I didn't want it. I know that they exist, and I'm so sorry to those that exist, that have those stories, but I didn't want to read them at that time. And I just, again, needed normal. So I went back to work 2 weeks after my hysterectomy, again, a bit too soon. And then just, threw myself back into life, really, and was determined to prove to anyone and everyone that I can and do that. And now I've just managed to get a promotion at work. I've started university to study my masters, got me some hair back, and now like life feels better. Like when I was poorly, I missed walking my dog. I missed doing the school run. I missed going to the shops for food. I missed cooking my dinner. So all those things I love now. And I wouldn't love them as much as I do now if I hadn't had my diagnosis. So it's been really difficult at times, mentally, physically and emotionally. Sometimes it's been really funny, sometimes it's been really sad. There's been every emotion, I think, throughout the whole thing. But actually now I'm eternally grateful for life, for my prognosis. I'm really lucky, really fortunate. Menopause, I'm in and out of it. I've done it in 6 months. And I kind of laughed to all my friends and like, you've got 10 years of it, like it takes ages to go through. So I've done it, been there, done it, wore that t-shirt. And even now, my only symptoms now, I get like some neuropathy in my hands. So I get like, where I can't feel my fingertips if it's cold, which is weird, so I never had that during chemo. And the brain fog, which is the recall of information. By about 2 o'clock, I forget my own name. But I also have a really busy life. I've got 2 children, I've got a dog, I've got a really busy job, I've got university, and everything else combined. So yeah, otherwise I'm doing really well, and I'm really like just chuffed it's all done and I don't have to worry about it anymore, almost, apart from blood tests and CT scans and things like that. But yeah, so it's been difficult, but with that positive mindset and taking the small wins and getting through it that way, it's made it easier and better. It absolutely scares me. Again, my Google search history, it's awful. I've looked and I've searched, and I'm in, Facebook groups and stuff about it, and where the reoccurrences come. And again, people will talk about reoccurrences more than they say, oh no, I've been all clear forever. Because we like to talk about the bad stuff, don't we? The bad stuff gets more clicks, the bad, whatever it is. And I asked my oncologist, and I said, look, from an oncology perspective, and you're a doctor, I'm really worried about secondary, and what can I be looking out for? And he was just like, anything out of the ordinary. I was like, all right, thanks. And I think, the chances of it returning are quite slim, especially because I've had everything kind of removed. But there is always that chance. So it is worrying, and I always need to know. I want to know every bit of information. I want to know what my levels are. I want to know how high they are. I want to see them, what did that look like? I usually get hold of whoever the consultant or doctor, whoever it is, I make them bring the thing up on the screen. I'm not sure if they're allowed to do this. So I can see and go back on my other blood tests and make sure, because for so long that number, the AFP and the CA125 was so important in my life that I'm like, I want to make sure that that's okay. Obviously I had a CT, I've just had a CT scan which was all clear. And my blood, I've just had a routine blood test. But even if it's routine, I get them to check my levels. So if it's for something else, I'm like, should I just put that on the form as well? So it does worry me. It is in the back of my mind. I try not to let it overtake it, because I think I would then just be constantly worried. And the more you read and the more you delve into, your conversations around over-processed foods, going vegan, going not having sugar in your diet, taking cannabis oil, doing that, or I love sugar, I love bread, and there might be people that go, oh, that's probably why she's got cancer, but I don't think it's that. I think you can absolutely live your life and try and be healthy and, for yourself, but you can't live under a rock, and I'm absolutely going to want to drink a wine, I'm going to want to have things like that. So, it plays on my mind, but it doesn't give me an awful lot of anxiety as such. For me, I'm very much what will be, and I've always been quite spiritualist, so I've always been like, oh, everything happens for a reason. It's weird when you're saying that on a chemo ward, but actually the things I learned about myself and people I've met that have been so inspirational and amazing, it almost does feel like it has happened for a reason. So, and we don't know. No one knows what's around the corner. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So we have to just live in the moment. And if you want to not eat animal byproducts, then that's entirely up to you. But that's not I'll do. Cut this bit out for the vegans. I created a page 2 years ago now, nearly, around I wanted to be a life coach. Really wanted to help other people, and I never had the balls to put my face to it. So I shared poems that I'd written. I've always written quite creatively. I shared little quotes that I'd wrote, and then I spent ages Googling how long it takes to build a social following and all of that, and I was just like, oh, do you know what, it's totally overwhelming. I like my 9-to-5 job. And was just scared to put my face to everything. All my other socials have always been locked down. I've always had, pictures of my children and stuff, and it wasn't until I had my diagnosis, was told that I would need to have chemo, that I then went looking for someone that had been through what I had, and I couldn't find them. I couldn't find the girls that had BEP chemo. Until I found one who lived in Dubai. So, and she wasn't active anymore, so she had had it the year before, and I messaged her and she didn't respond. And then I went through and I saw loads of people sharing their stories, and I just thought, do you know what, if they can, so can I. And I'd already kind of shared it on my own platform, with my friends, my family and stuff, so just that everyone is aware. So that felt fine. And I think, it sounds weird, but at the time, I was like, well, no one is going to take the mick out of a cancer patient. Because you get trolls, that's one thing that puts people off about doing anything with social media. No one's going to take the mick out of me for being, having cancer. So I just was like, do you know what? No, all my inhibitions went, I just thought, I felt almost safe and protected because I had a diagnosis, which sounds really weird, especially from a social media perspective. So I just uploaded my first video, and that was that. And then it started to people were interested and getting traction and stuff, and then I used it as I always looked at other people, and I've made some really good relationships through met some wonderful people on there, but it almost overtook my own journaling. So I'd always journaled, but by doing it in video, it helped me to continue journaling, but also get used to how my face was changing and how my look was changing, and adapt to that. So my hair got shaved off. My hair was cut really short first before I lost it. So adapting to that change, it helped. And even when I was having chemo, and I advise that anyone else who potentially has the same diagnosis or is going to go through the same sort of treatment, do videos and then look, even if you don't share them anywhere, because when I went through my other cycles of BEP, I could go back and I was like, what was it like on day 15 of cycle 1? Because the symptoms are the same, it's strange, they get worse, but So it was really helpful for me to go back and look at what had happened before. And I haven't shared as much as what I, like, since my diagnosis, about from where, you know, where I am now. I haven't really felt the need to, and I'm contactable. If people need help, then I'm more than happy to help them. But I don't really know what my purpose is, and I don't really know where that's going. And I think that if I can just help one person by raising awareness, and I've had people kind of message me who've had scans, and I'm saying, well, you need a scan and you need a blood test, you need a CA125. Like, you know, I'm not a doctor by any means, and they've gone on to go and have that blood test and ask their doctor for it. And then found that they've got it, or they've got it early, like that, just to raise that awareness and have those conversations with just one person makes everything worth it. But for myself, I gained a lot from it, in terms of just into how I looked and how I acted, and it made me have balls to just get on and do it. And and even now, my friends, it's coming up to summer, and there's my friends are all like, oh, I've sent my bikinis back because they don't fit me anymore. And I was like, I was on a beach, bald, really round from chemo last year, and I need, if I can wear a bikini like looking like that, then you can. And I've got a really dark sense of humour, in the sense I was on a beach bald, and I was like, well, I wonder if people think it's my last time at the beach. And we had a bonfire on the beach when we weren't meant to, and I was just like, it's all right, I'll just tell them it's my last time. And I know that's awful, but I think when you go through the dark times in your life, the dark humour comes out, and my friends absolutely annihilated me, and they're like, do not ever say things like that again. But I'm like, I need to make a joke of it. I need to, it needs to be funny, and sweating. And I think one of the funny questions that I had, and I think this, men will probably feel it as well. I remember being in work, and I said, I don't deem myself as attractive anymore. And everyone looked at me shocked. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I don't see myself as attractive. And they're like, yeah, but you're beautiful, Sadie. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not at the moment. I'm like, yeah, I used to be. And I genuinely, look at myself and I'm like, yeah, you're probably like an 8. Now I'm like, I don't, but I think more than that, I don't have to be. Actually, given my permission to be poorly, to deal with everything that's happened, and then to, and now just living through it and living life again. And I get to do life again. That makes me very lucky and very fortunate, and and go through all the awful hairstyles I'll now go through to try and grow it back.